Karim, spelled Kareem, not I
K
am. I
Karim.
I am. Oh, okay.
That's right.
We have it misspelled here. Anyway, Alhamdulillah. This is a wonderful opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I became aware of uh, Brother Karim just a few weeks ago, and he got himself in some hot water with our brothers and sisters in the Ummah of South Africa. And they have declared him persona non grata and have exorcised him from the Ummah as a blasphemer. This sort of thing, these crazy religious thinking that people get caught up into, and it's a kind of a prison. Uh, in metaphysical terms, they're imprisoned in a dark light, and that's unfortunate. But Brother Karim's perspectives deserve to be heard, and I wanted to introduce him to my students and the larger audience who happens to find some of the things that I do and say interesting. Um, the reason being, there's a problem in the Ummah, and Brother Ayoob has identified some of these things, and many of these things which he say also concurrently agree with what I've heard from other commentators, other academics, other scholars, other imams, other, you know, street people, taxi drivers and whatnot, who always ask these same questions. I asked many of these questions when I first became a Muslim and was invited to join the ulama in Kuala Lumpur. And I was quite surprised to see that I was, in fact, an ulama. You see, in the contract that I had with the university, declared me an ulama. I guess that makes me some sort of an imam. In any case, I was surprised about it and how easily it was done. Oh, I impressed one individual with the book I wrote, and suddenly I'm there in this wonderfully exalted chair as a research fellow at IIUM. And I offered many criticisms and observations that just anyone would say if you use your brain with respect to the development of the Ummah since the departure of our beloved Prophet. And no one wanted to talk about many of the things, many of the criticisms, many of the questions that have gone unanswered. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce another gentleman who had the same problem. But I'm not going to say anything more other than ask you, dear brother Karim, how it is that you came to your position, because I don't know anything about you except other than what I've just said. And um, it seems to me that you were probably born into Islam and raised in the madrasa system and the current fundamentalist perspectives that are held sacred by most of the people in the Sunni majority, and as well as the Shia people and whoever else is we can throw in there. But what happened to you coming to bring you to this point where your own flesh and blood, if you were metaphysically, is now throwing you out of the family because you're asking pertinent questions and giving and finding pertinent answers? How did you come to this revelation that something was wrong with the Ummah, something was wrong with what we consider to be Islam? Dear brother, if I may, I know you don't have very much
Mm.
time.
No, no, it's
You're
fine.
limited because of your physical limitations, as am I. We're a couple of old guys here, just getting sicker and getting closer to our end. But what happened? How did this happen? There must have been a series of events, or a series of discoveries, or a series of shocking revelations that led you to take this bold step and begin to criticize your family, if you will. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, from the inside, this is a terrible thing. Hey, say, Dad, that's wrong. You
Mhm.
can't do that, Dad. I mean, how did you get to this point where you actually criticize the people who nurtured you? You see, and now having them call you a kufir, or a blasphemer, or whatever the case might be, you're no longer worthy of their fellowship. What happened, dear brother? What happened, inshallah?
To everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank Dr. O for allowing me this interview and to share my thoughts and my experiences with you. Are you hearing me clear, Dr. O?
Yes, yes, very clear.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So how this actually happened, I've been hearing about this Quran thing a long time. I think it's over 10 years ago.
Mhm, mhm,
I was even invited to certain meetings with people who were Quran only. And because I was so engrossed in my work, I never took them seriously. Not that I
mm,
discarded them, right? Um Being in the field of comparative religion, and I started an organization based on comparative religion. I was
mhm.
an understudy, or let's say, I served under Sheikh Ahmad Didat for almost 11 years.
Oh,
The legendary Sheikh
okay.
Ahmad Didat. I served under him
Hmm.
for more than 11 years.
Hmm.
And after he got sick and there was a lot of turmoil, a few of us, of his students, decided that we would start Ikra. And
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah, in the year 2000, we launched it. And for the next 22 years, I was engrossed in that. So when people spoke to me about Quran, even though I was invited to the meetings and things like that, I would listen to them. But when I got back to the office, I would get on with my work and never paid attention to them.
Hmm.
So nothing clicked here at that time. And I think the time that came that really opened up my mind was during the lockdown. And
Ah.
why so is because being a head of an organization, the president, the Amir
Hmm. Hmm.
of an organization, I had to set the example true. I had to set the example correctly. So, to put it simply, I was a Pakka Sunni,
Ah.
a proper Sunni,
Hmm.
right? And that is the basis on which I built the organization, built on the basis of the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And it is
Hmm.
something that I preached, promoted, and practiced.
Mm.
Now, during the lockdown, it was the Friday, if I can remember, it was the 27th of 2020. And I got up in the morning as usual, and I was preparing myself, getting ready to go for Jummah.
Hmm.
And when my wife watched me, she asked me, "What are you doing?" So I said, "I'm getting ready. I have to go for Jummah." And she tells me, "Do you understand that we are under lockdown?"
Hmm.
And that is when it struck. Yes, we are under lockdown.
Ah.
So, lockdown, and I can't go for Jummah.
Hmm.
So, am I going to allow? So, is this a command of God, whereby now a politician who is advised by the doctors, who is going to tell me what I can do and what I cannot do to fulfill my religious duties?
Hmm.
So, there was a paradigm shift. That is what bothered
Ah.
me,
Mm.
right? From a religious leader who would dictate terms to me, which I would dictate to the public,
Hmm.
and now it goes into the hands of the politicians.
Yes.
And it really didn't matter whether that person was a Muslim politician or a Christian politician. Politician he is. And he is telling me, Ayoob Karim, you cannot go for Jummah. Would that make sense to you?
Ah.
So that
Yes.
is where it started from. So I said,
Hmm.
no, but this is not right. This is wrong.
Hmm.
Now I started going to the Quran. I am looking for Jummah
Mm.
in the Quran. And I'm
Hmm.
looking for Jummah in the Hadith.
Yes.
That is when the real research started. Now, within a week of doing that, then I started reflecting on all the meetings that I used to have with the Quran people.
Hmm.
It was during that time. And then from there, one thing led to the next, and one thing led to the next. And then I got back to work after the lockdown. I think it was the seventh, eighth week. And I went back to the organization as normal. But there was something that bothered me. Is that now I knew the truth. I could understand the concept of the Quran now. And there is no way I could stand and preach something that is non Quranic or un-Quranic or anti Quranic or anything
Hmm.
of anti Quranic sentiments. I
Mm.
found that then I would be a hypocrite. So the only choice I made was that, well, actually, I was killing two birds with one stone, was that I was sick and I wanted to retire. So I said, why not now? Why wait another 2 more years?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was on the 4th of July, 2020. Yeah, it was the 4th of July. Yeah, okay. We can't forget the 4th of July, American independence. I think that is when I got my independence. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So on the 4th of July, I tendered in my resignation. I called a meeting and I said, this is the story. And as of today, as of now, I formally stepped down as president of ICRA. I stepped down as Amir of this organization. And I said, I will remain with the organization for the next 6 months, providing the coming in Amir, the handover. And it took me 6 months to do the handover. But during that time, I started doing more and more research into the Quran. And I found that, sad to say, Dr. O, do I address you as Dr. O? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
That's fine.
All
All
the
right.
all the locals call me Dr. O here in Kentucky.
Dr. O. All right. Okay. So we'll import that brand into South Africa now.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, then I realized that what we are doing within traditional Islam, I mean, now the things that I used to teach, I have to withdraw. And I taught my children. And now when I went to them and tell them that, listen, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is not of the Quran. And I remember my second son tell me this. I have a very open relationship with my children. And I tell them, you all talk to me what's on your mind. Do not hide anything from me. And that is why they could come to me and they could tell me things. And my second son tells me, but Dad, you taught us all your life that this is what we should do. I said, yes. And now you're telling us all that is wrong. I says, yes. He says, how do we know that what you're telling us now is the truth, is correct, and that 5 years later you wouldn't come and change your mind?
Yes. Yes.
Now that's a dagger in your heart.
No,
But
of
it's
course
the
it
truth.
is.
But it's the truth.
Yes.
And basically, most of my children were of that view. And I said, listen, now you don't listen to me just because I'm telling you, but I need something from you all. I said, I want you all to go and check the Quran. Anything I tell you now, don't take it as the truth. You go and verify it. Do me that favor. And of course, my eldest daughter, she asked me, Dad, how did you come to know all these things as being true? I said, well, I came across in the Quran. And she said, now you are pushing me that I should do the same. I said, no, I'm not pushing you. So she tells me, just as how you, at the age of 60, discovered these as the truth, allow me the time, and I will discover those truths in my time.
Yes.
And I had to respect that.
Of course.
I had to respect that. I mean,
Of course.
My eldest daughter is a mother of 3 children. So I just can't bamboozle her into anything.
No, of course not.
But so far, alhamdulillah, all my kids now are actually reading the Quran. They are reading the Quran. My wife and I, we sit with the Quran 3 times a day and we go through it and we learn. Just this morning, I did a recording, and I know, they have already declared me as an apostate, but that is beside the point. This goes back to the dark ages. Christianity. Bruno,
Yes,
Galileo, Isaac Newton, and all these people. I mean, if it wasn't for them, one of the irony of this whole situation is that, I recall going to one masjid, and the imam is using the microphone, and he's sidelining or down talking the Jewish people. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this gentleman, and I say, but man, you are using the Jewish invention, the mic, to tell that man that he's wrong.
Yes.
Where is your invention that you can use? I mean, this is one of the strangest things about this whole thing. Everything about Christianity, Judaism, Judeo-Christianism, Western civilization, like to them, everything about that is wrong, and everything about traditional Islam is right. But the surprising thing is that, I mean, who invented stainless steel? It was not the Muslims, although Muslims discovered many things. But now if you want to go for an open heart surgery, you need the stainless steel. It's coming from Judeo-Christian science.
Yes, of course.
So when we consider all these things, then I found in the Quran that the Islam that Allah gave us in the Quran is the Islam that our Prophet Muhammad practiced in Medina,
Ah. Mm-hmm.
right? And that is the
Yes.
Islam we're supposed to be practicing. It is not a Islam of mine and yours. Like,
Yes.
we are Muslims and you
Yes.
are Christian and you are Jewish people. Although I am
Mm-hmm.
guilty of that. I mean, I was a student of Mr. Didat for 11 years. And for 22 years, I took the platform and I did exactly that. I was debating
Mm-hmm.
Christians,
Yes.
you know.
Well,
So
what else? What else could you do? I mean,
what
you
else
were.
could I do,
You,
I wouldn't like to say that, I was brainwashed by Mr. Didat. No, no, I wasn't
mm-hmm.
brainwashed by him. Forgive me for that cough. I think I have
Sure.
a cold,
Mm-hmm.
so prior to joining Mr. Didat,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I hope you don't mind. I'll give you a little bit of the background as
No,
to how
please,
I went
please
there.
do. I think our listeners want to hear your
All
story,
right.
of course.
So before joining Mr. Didat, I finished metric high school in 1976,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to college. I studied chemical technology, and then I worked in one of the laboratories in South Africa, one of the petroleum laboratories in South Africa. So being doing analytical chemistry in the
Mm-hmm.
laboratory, and I did shift work, and then I on weekends used to go home like every fortnight or every month end. uh,
Mm-hmm.
we lived in the south coast in KwaZulu Natal, a nice small town called Amzinto. That is where I was brought up. And then I used
Mm-hmm.
to go home once a month or once in 2 weeks to visit my mom and dad. My siblings were there as well. And then I used to go to the Islamic Propagation Center. At that time, they were in Madrasa Arcade, and I used to get all of Mr. Dirad's books, and I used to read them, and I got engrossed by it.
Ah.
I was taken by it. The
Mm-hmm.
arguments that Mr. Didat was given. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the very first book I read of Mr. Didat was Crucifixion or Crucifixed.
Ah, yes, yes, I
You
remember
remember
that.
that
Yes,
one? All right, yeah.
yes, of course.
That was the very first book of Mr. Didat I read,
Mm-hmm.
and I was amazed. And I looked at the logics of the arguments, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Man, this is revelation." And I went back into Durban. Amzinto to
Mm-hmm.
Durban is about 70 kilometers. So I drove
Mm-hmm.
all the way back 70 kilometers, and I asked for the complete set of Mr. Dirat's book.
Oh.
And that same night, I sat and I read everything. Well, actually, more than 50% of all his books. And
Mm-hmm.
now, when I got back to work, and during our tea breaks, lunch breaks, or whatever it is, we all sit around and we talk politics. And although it wasn't encouraged to talk politics, but we would talk politics, we would talk religion, although even religion was not encouraged as well. But we used to have our discussion. And then here was Ayoob Karim, who was coming up with all those questions, and I became the savior of the day. Everybody saw me
Mm-hmm.
then as a hero, because whether it was a
Mm-hmm.
Jew, a Christian, or a Hindu, the questions I was posing, this was like, where is he coming from, with all this? But I was getting it from Mr. Dirat's books.
Mm-hmm.
This gave me the edge, the advantage. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I came down to Durban, I used to make it a note to go and visit Mr. Dirat. And we chat, we spoke many times. And then I just decided one day, you know what? Let me leave chemistry. Let me go and join Mr. Dirat.
Oh
So I
gosh, that was a
resigned.
big decision.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
very big decision. I resigned, and I started working for Mr. Didat, being an understudy of
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Didat, and for the next 11 years I did that. And then until such time he got very, very sick, and then I was compelled to leave. Well, there were a few of us who left, and we
Mm-hmm.
started what is Ikra. And for 22 years, I've been doing the same thing that Mr. Didat was doing. I mean, if you go and Google Ayoob Karim, you'll find that there's many, many debates I've had with various Christian scholars.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's worth anything today, but all I'm saying is that I wouldn't say that I wasted my time, although I do believe that I've wasted 22 years of my life. Well, actually, I
Mm-hmm.
wasted 30 years of my life. But I am happy in the sense that I found the truth.
Yes.
And for this I am thankful. I mean, if you
Yes.
take a simple thing like the video that I did this morning on Allahu Akbar,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to shatter the minds of the ulama, it's going to shatter the minds of the scholars,
Yes.
just based on the concept of Allahu Akbar. And this thing
Mm-hmm.
bugged me a long time, that I've been looking for the word Allahu Akbar in the Quran.
It's not there.
And Dr. O, it's not there. It's not there. So I am asking the question. It's in the video. I'm asking the question.
Yes, of course.
So who is this God Akbar? Because I don't find it in the Quran. Yes. Who is this God? So I know that the ulama and the Islamic scholars are not going to leave me for this. Shukar.
That's okay. Don't worry.
So I really don't know what they're going to do, but I still believe that, listen, the traditional Muslims in general, they need to know that although we say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar for everything, where is it? Where do we get it from? Of course, they will say it's a hadith. But to me, hadith is not the Quran. If Allah doesn't say it, I'm not interested in it. If it's in the Quran, I will listen to you. But now you come and tell me hadith and hadith and hadith and hadith. You know, this is what destroyed the people of Moses, the followers of Moses. This is what destroyed the followers of Jesus. They left the religion of their respective prophets and they created a religion about their prophets. So the Jewish people created a religion about Moses, but they didn't follow the religion of Moses. The same thing with Jesus. They didn't follow the religion of Jesus. They started creating a religion about Jesus. And the same thing happened to the Muslims, that they stopped following the religion of Muhammad and they started of Prophet Muhammad, and they started creating a religion surrounding Muhammad. So each of these people, they actually how do you say this word? They actually, they put him on a pedestal. They put the prophets on a pedestal.
Yes, sir. Right. Yes, yeah. It's hagiography. They made him into a saint.
And that is exactly what they did. In fact, this happened with all the religions.
Yes.
If you go back to history, and according to my understanding, I could be wrong, but even if you look at the oldest religion in the world, probably in Mesopotamia, I don't know. I think so. I'm not sure. But I mean, if you go back, in history, if you look at the Mayan civilization, you look at, even the Red Indians as well. You go down to the Chinese, you look at Shinto, Taoism, and all these religions. They all, I believe, they all had prophets, because
of course they did. Of course,
Allah tells us in the Quran that to every nation and tribe, He sent a prophet. So all these people, they had a prophet. God sent them a prophet. But what did they do? They started worshipping the prophet instead of worshipping the one that sent the prophet. And that is the flaw I find in traditional Islam. We are worshipping the one that sent.
Yes.
We are worshipping the one that was sent. We are not worshipping the one that sent the prophet.
Yeah.
And
well, I think we're not even worshiping him. I think we're worshiping the hadith. And that's because worship means to obey, to submit and obey. So I think that's the event. I don't want to hold you too long because
it's fine.
The time constraints. But I want to ask you one other question. We can explore these questions and answers and the history and the development of errors and things that are correct over a period of time if we continue to do these interviews here, dear brother, which I would like to do. But right now, I want to ask you something a bit more personal. Since you've been ostracized, has this affected your income?
Oh, yes, definitely. Oh, yes. The organization that I built, I physically built. Well, apparently, the new board of trustees or whoever the management committee is, they've taken a decision that according to the constitution, which I was party of drawing up initially 22 years ago, was that the organization will be run within the guidelines of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And they say, but now, Mr. Karim, your beliefs and your practices are not in line with the constitution. So based on that, we cannot give you that 60% stipend that we allowed you. We're gonna retract that. So I said, but how do I live? He said, no, but that is not our problem. You either come back to the path that you were on and we will give you that funding. Otherwise, we cannot give it to you. So I say, if a Christian guy that comes to you and he wants you to buy him a loaf of bread, You are not going to
Hmm.
buy just because you believe that Jesus is God.
Yes. Right.
You know. So I mean, if you look at
Yes, it's like that. Hmm.
so it comes down to being, too traditional. Yours and mine. Okay,
Yes.
so I don't believe the way that they are believing. Sure, it has
Hmm.
affected my income very, very badly, but I do have some savings. I will survive
Hmm.
on that for as long as I can.
Hmm.
But Alhamdulillah, on the first appeal that I made, I received support. No, no, yes, the brothers out there, they
Hmm.
are very, very helpful. I got to concede that.
Very, very good.
Very good. So
I,
they've
I
helped me
would
out as
like to
well.
I would like to extend an invitation to our listeners to support you in any way that's possible as time goes by, and please let us know how, if we manage to get any funds together for you. Please let us know how we can get those funds to you.
No
Um,
problem. Doctor, what I will do for you is that when we finish here,
hmm.
I will email you my bank details and the PayPal details. But on
Hmm.
my channel page, the PayPal details is there. But nevertheless, I can email you whatever details you want. There are those who are using the PayPal. There are
Hmm.
those overseas that are using the Swift code. That works
Hmm.
fine as well. So
Hmm.
whichever way, I'm sure we can work around that. We can find some kind of solution towards that.
Very good.
So
You please let my good wife know, because she handles all these details. Um,
no
I
problem.
would like to continue on a not irregular basis to have these discussions with you. The purpose is to reinforce the same sort of revelation that you had and I had,
All right.
for those who are listening to us, because the more the next and upcoming generation hear from us old fellas, I think it's encouraging for them, because they're also in a similar position. You see, they have nowhere to turn to. You see, and if they go back to the Jum'ah, if you will, they're not going to
Right.
get the answers that they really need. They're not going to get the confirmation of the use of this wonderful and beloved mindset that Allah has given us, this fitra, if you will. So I
Yes.
want to reinforce that, and we reinforce that with the dhikr. You see, the Quran has its dhikr. I called it his story. You
His
see,
story. That's right.
yeah, that's what it is. And but we each have our own little story, our own little biography, and people learn from the narrative. And that enriches us. When you go to sit at a family gathering, say you're at a barbecue and you're sitting around the fire, and some old fella starts talking off. In the old days, he's telling stories. He's not giving you a dissertation. He's telling
No,
stories.
it's true.
So I want to tell the story, okay, as much as possible. That's what his story is. It's the story of his beloved love for us through creation and through our response to creation. This is Islam is supposed to respond to fitra and grow and evolve that fitra, so that we ourselves enter into the tree of life. It's not a difficult matter, and any child can understand these imaginations, which are not false. They're true.
Hmm.
So we don't need to complicate things. If we tell the story, the complicated matters, we have to look at them scientifically. You as a chemist know, you see, and I as a doctor know, hey, well, this wonderful creation is incredibly complicated, but it's also incredibly and mystically coordinated in Tawheed fashion. I mean, how do you separate these things? uh, the Ummah has reduced itself, and so we've got everything in fragmentations now. Fragmentations. This I just spoke to a Christian pastor who's fallen on hard times. I went to visit. I'm going to cook him some soup today. You see, so and go visit him again. Him and his dear wife. And I asked. He's a truck driver. He drives truck during the week, and he comes home on the weekend, and then he preaches. You see, and I always like to go to his church where he's preaching. I love to hear him speak, and he knows I'm a Muslim, and my perspective on Jesus is different than his, but that doesn't matter. I asked him, I said, what's going on in the country now? He drives all over the country. I say, you see, you got your pulse, you got your finger on the pulse of this country. He said, I said, what's going on? He said, it's being fragmented. people are breaking up into more and more segments of society. Sectarianism is just taking over, and even the religious, even within the religious congregations, they're all vying with each other for power. This is all about power. You see, you're the people who have call you a blasphemer. They're in positions of power and they're abusing it. You see, because you don't believe like they believe. Well, this is ridiculous nonsense. And if you study some of the ancient cultures, and I have some contacts now with some of those people who still understand the oral traditions, and they've maintained them. I know a guy right now living up in the mountains in West Virginia. I'm hoping to go meet him sometime. He gives me a history that's like 200,000 years long. You see, and so these people, they said, well, this division is that's not it. If you look at this is not the way we're meant to live. If you look at a group of men, they come across a person, another guy's got a flat tire, they'll all stop and help him change the tire and get back on the road. And before they sit down, and he gets back on the road, they sit down, and then they at one moment they're all working together for the same purpose, for the same cause, to help their brother, okay, get back on the road. Then they sit down and have a drink of water or a sandwich or whatever the case might be. And then one finds out he's a Jew, the other one finds out they're Christian, the other one finds out the Buddhist, and all of a sudden they're at each other's throats. This is not Islam.
No, definitely not.
And the Muslims should not be this way either. We should fix the guy's tire, wish him well, Godspeed, and everyone go home in peace, make love to your wife, have a good meal, and enjoy the blessings of our beloved Creator. Enjoy them. This division it's not going to stop. I think we know that.
Most definitely. In fact, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. I was performing an exercise for myself, because people say that there would be 73 sects in Islam, out of which only one would go to heaven.
Yes.
So I was actually, physically, Dr. O, I was doing this. Well, this is part of research. You got to do it that way. So I started writing down each sect, and I was documenting it. And, well, I got news for traditional Muslims. We have passed the 73 mark.
Yes.
We have got beyond that.
Yes.
So that means that hadith is now dive. So I don't know whether they'll consider it dive or whether they'll throw it out completely. But of course they won't throw it out.
Wonderful.
Going back to what you mentioned earlier on, after I mentioned that alhamdulillah, I am receiving support from Muslims, both locally and overseas. And actually, I was quite surprised with the amount of support I received locally in South Africa.
Alhamdulillah.
And, after that, I received a lot of emails. From a lot of brothers and sisters from overseas. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time.
No, not at all. I reserve this time for you, and you continue as long as you can.
Yeah, but I have a bad habit. When I start talking, I can't stop. So somebody has to tell me stop.
I have the same problem.
Seriously, all right. So I was talking about. A lot of people were emailing me, and they actually want me to. Well, some people said I need to move to the UK. One said I need to go to Canada. There were 3 or 4 brothers and from the USA said that I need to relocate to USA because you have the freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to say. But in these 3 years, from the time I stepped down as president and as Amir of the organization, and I started doing my own work and things like that. The surprising thing, Dr. O, is that I have met so many youngsters, young Muslims, who are already thinking in terms of the Quran, without me telling them a word, without anybody influencing them or telling them that, listen, this is the way you need to go. I mean, I met a young child, a teenager. He's only 13 years old, and he's telling me things that goes against the hadith, and he's telling me why we should only stick to the Quran at the age of 13. At the age of 13. Now, how great is that?
That's what they say Jesus did with the rabbis of his days.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, yes, of course. So in this short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
I've met a number of Muslims here in Durban. I met
Mm-hmm.
a number of them, many of them who are 18, 19, 20, 21, and most of them, they say that, listen, we just have to keep our mouth shut and do what our parents tell us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, things would turn out sour and bitter for them. And
Yes.
I tell them, no, do whatever you have to do. But the thing is that at heart, those
Mm-hmm.
kids are Quran only.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yes.
what are they going to do? Well, you see, that is the reason why I don't want to leave South Africa and go on. I don't want to leave Durban.
No,
I would
you.
stay here. I will do whatever I need to do, even if I
Mm-hmm.
have to die in South Africa, here in Durban. But
Of course.
I need to create some form of home, some form of
Mm-hmm.
solidarity for these people who are now
Yes.
coming into this Quran only.
Yes.
This is what I need to create for them.
Mm-hmm.
They are all lost, like how I am. I am lost. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
we don't have a sense of belonging in South
Mm-hmm.
Africa. There's a Quranist over there. But, when people call us Quranist, I say, yeah, okay, then the Prophet Muhammad was also a Quranist. You
Yes.
know,
Of
you
course
know,
he was.
and,
Mm-hmm.
and and the sad part about it, they say that we give these labels to ourselves. No, 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 no. The
Mm-hmm.
traditional Muslims gave us these labels. We are
Yes.
Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
We are Muslims. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they chose Sunnism. They
Yes.
chose Shiaism.
Yes.
Right? We were Sunnis. My choice was a Sunni, not a Shia. But now I chose to become a Muslim. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
such thing as that. It depends on what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
People
Mm-hmm.
are going to decide whether I'm Muslim or not. No, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is living in the 15th, 14th, 15th century. And
Yes.
these
Of
people
course.
are living there. They are living there.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to create a kind of a home, a,
Mm-hmm.
a kind of solidarity for these youngsters. Well, there are
I
many
agree
others
with
as
you.
well.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
what I need to create for them, and
I agree with
that
you.
is
Yeah.
my that is my
Mhm.
plan going forward.
Let
There
your
are
apostasy let your apostasy act like a nidus, you see, around which
yes, yes,
something can crystallize for these
yeah, sure,
for the
sure,
next
sure, sure.
generation. I think that's a good place
That is what that is what I
to.
plan to do.
Very good, very good. Well, let's leave it there, brother. And
No problem.
if you agree, let's try to. Is Wednesday a good day for you? Is, these Wednesday
Um,
mornings are do you have a regular schedule, or because I would like to meet with you on a regular basis to establish a sort of a
all
rhythm.
right.
All
Would
right.
you like to have
But
it once every week or once every two
no,
weeks?
I think once every 2 weeks would be better. You see, I
Perfect. Once
don't
every
want
two
us to
weeks.
be.
All
Mhm.
right.
And
Uh,
that's still open to negotiation
no
depending on whatever
problem.
the circumstances
No
are.
problem.
But if we establish a sine wave rhythm, you see, this rhythm is everywhere in creation, and if we want to create this nidus for the next generation, you see, then we have to
Okay.
be regular, we have to be
All right.
reliable, we have to be trustworthy, you see, and
So
then every 2 weeks or so. So what I'll
every
do, yeah,
Dr. O,
yeah,
every 2 weeks with me, perfect. I don't have a problem with that.
very good, very good. And what we'll do is we'll do that every 2 weeks. I'll leave it to me to sort of develop some leading questions. And I don't want to prepare any kind of scenario or script or anything like that. With all my interviews with the people like yourself, I just
Fine.
like to let it flow right straight from the heart,
Exactly.
because this is what children need. And we're all children at heart. As soon as I get off here, I'm going to go play with my wife, you see, like a
All
little
right.
kid. So
Okay.
that's what we do. Okay. So we're all children. And if you become this little children, you can enter into the kingdom. And that's what we're talking about here, because our beloved prophet established the kingdom. He established the template for the kingdom in the earth. That's what he did with the Medina Constitution. Maybe
Constitution.
we can, maybe we can discuss that. It's one of my favorite topics to discuss the Medina Constitution and that example that the prophet set, because that's the political example. You see, where
Exactly.
both streams come together and then manifest. See?
Dr. O, now that you mentioned that,
Yes.
uh, we talk about our prophet. being a loving father, a loving husband, and so many
Yes.
other things our ulama and our Islamic scholars will tell us. I have yet to come across a single ulama or a
Mm.
single Islamic scholar who will tell us that Prophet Muhammad was the world's best politician.
Yes. Yes. The
No,
Western historians have admitted this.
no, and Western stories admit, but our own scholars. I mean,
Mhm.
seriously, have you forgotten? I mean, you can remember that I mean, the hadith is full of what kind of a husband he was. The
Mhm.
hadith is full of what kind of a father he was. But
Mhm.
does the hadith not tell you what kind of a politician he was? You understand?
Eh,
This is
Yeah, he was the most exquisite diplomat that I think the world's ever seen.
I've never seen.
So
Exactly.
let us leave it there, and maybe in 2 weeks let's have a look see at Medina again and what actually happened there, dear brother.
Same time
Thank you.
next week. Same time next week,
Yes,
Wednesday.
not next week, in 2 weeks. All
In
right,
2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Yes, of
in two
course.
weeks. Okay,
In 2 weeks. I will
provided
diarize
that
that.
we both live that long, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, you get your information data off to my dear wife Bina, and
All
we'll see
right.
what we can do to add to our website some sort of a contribution page for your nidus there in South Africa. I think that's very, very important. I have some other friends in South Africa, some who agree with you, some who don't know about you, some who don't care, but it doesn't matter. we just,
All right.
we,
Thank you.
you're going to import Dr. O to South Africa. I've already been there. I did
Is
a
it?
series of lectures last week or last year with
Okay.
one of my colleagues, and it lasted for about 30 weeks or so. And it started out with a madrasas somewhere, and they all abandoned me by the end. You see, except for a couple of students, because
Okay.
I'm just too truthful and too honest and perhaps too critical. But
Of
these things
course.
have to be said. They have to be said not for the sake of the person who is actually working counter to the kingdom of God, but they have to be said for the sake of the children who are coming up behind us, so that they can see and contrast the difference between the prison of revelation, I mean, the prison of tradition, and the freedom of revelation, you see, and what Salat really means to maintain this connection. So, um, let us do this, dear brother. Let us see where it is that Allah wants to take us and take those who follow us. And once again, I want to thank you very much for this time and for your contributions to whatever this revisionist movement is. And we'll talk about that again, I'm sure.
I'm
So, with
sure.
that having
And
been said,
I
dear
would
brother,
and I would
go
also
ahead.
like to thank you for having me. Shukran,
You're
jazakallah.
welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure and my duty. Okay. Um, my duty, I consider it a duty. It's a kind of a sacred duty. I don't get all spiritual and superficial and supernatural about it. It's just,
Okay.
hey, this is a job. When people ask me, when I became a doctor, and they say, well, what do you think about that? I say, well, I used to be a paper boy, and it's just another job. I do my best at it. You see? So that's how it is, and because I have that attitude, a lot of people forget I'm a doctor. You see, I do because I don't act like one.
Okay, fine. Sure.
So, dear brother, in 2 weeks, inshallah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.